finals apparently is going to end up costing Richmond millions of dollars and tons of people their jobs. Richmond is looking ahead to its worst crisis in club history, all because Lynch did not want to sell a goal. All right. So I guess that's what we got going on. Hardwick, fantastic stuff there. And we also have a bit of a tale of two lions, if you want to call it that. One having a great time feeling the vibes, and then there's another lion that's apparently not feeling the vibes, whatever the hell that means. Also, if we're talking about bad vibes, the Bombers, probably kings of those right now. And there's a couple players that came up clutch this round, of course, and there's one player that had a shockingly bad, almost a historically bad, given how rare it is, stat line. Are we actually going to be freaking out about that one like a lot of people are? Or we're going to give another player his due? Of course, we're going to be talking about that and more because we have 4 finals games, 4 in the books. We got 2 clubs that are teetering the edge of losing in straight sets, and there's a fairly good possibility of that happening as well. It's time for football. The finals going here in America. The NFL season starting, so we got footy all around, and it's really one of the best times, if not the best time of the year. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Of course, I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside the best in the business, AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess. And Coach, how are we feeling after your Sydney Swans advance to the preliminary finals and looking damn good in the process?
Let's just safe to say there was a very happy Coach Hess after Friday night when that final siren went off and the Swans find themselves with their first preliminary home game at the SCG since 1996. So very happy about that. But just OMG, what a first round, 2 qualifiers, 2 elims, and not a single bad game out of the lot.
The first game especially.
That was absolutely bonkers. You go from the first, the Richmond Brisbane game that comes down to the last minute. Sydney Melbourne is an absolute arm wrestle for most of it, but the pressure takes over. The insanity that is the Geelong game, Geelong Collingwood game, and then almost the coup d'etat, the cherry on top is the insane ending, the insane change in the game of between the Dockers and the Doggies. So let's not ruin that. I'm gonna hop right into my headlines because basically went right to it.
Just go.
Lions win in an exhilarating game to end the Tigers season as the Lions find a way to kick a goal with a little over a minute left. Joe Danaher, superstar, finding a way amongst 5 Tigers to kick a goal and give Richmond its walking papers back to Victoria with a loss to end their season. We will discuss more of the drama that has happened since that and some of the things that got in it. I'm not going to discuss it because I think it's a nothing burger personally, but that's, again, my opinion. Swans and D's have a classic, a Swans pressure since D's to semifinals. The pressure was absolutely just manic by the Swans. Again, another 200 pressure rating. The fact that they broke so many records in this, they had 25 tackles inside forward 50. The average for an AFL game is 10. They had 25. And again, it was absolutely manic pressure. And then you add to the fact that the Swans keep adding these highlight reel defensive plays this season. Nick Blakey against St. Kilda with a tackle that led to a behind instead of a for sure goal. Dane Rampy's chase down of Maynard near the goal square to make a tackle that they didn't give up a goal, didn't give up any score at all. And then Robbie Fox hauling 70 meters on a dead sprint, stopping a Melsham kick, then being able to stomp on a dime and smother a kick by Spargo, and then Rampy being able to collect it, handball it over to Logan McDonald, who put it down the line. Clark makes the tackle, gets it out, and the Sydney fans roared like a goal was scored. So this Sydney defense, it is miserly, it is tough, and as a Swans fan, and many Swans fans I've listened to, there is a lot of belief that the Swans have a really good shot at getting to the granny, which would be fantastic for this young group because surprisingly for what many people thought was an experienced advantage by the Melbourne Demons. Did the Swans not look like a veteran team in that game, just absolutely smothering the life out of that game?
They made
That was
every
absolutely
play
fantastic.
It was high IQ footy. They were in the proper positions, and that also goes to show that the Sydney Swans are, I would say, especially with the young talent, Donnie. I don't know, correct me if I'm going a little bit hyperbole on this one, but I will say that the Sydney Swans are the best coach team in the league right now.
It is hard to argue that they have not found they found this carrot of pressure that nobody has been able to figure out, and nobody's been able to replicate anything close to this. And the other scary part about it is, and I've heard this discussed, if you look at the number of games that most of these Swans have, it is low. Like if you take Buddy Franklin, Parker, and some of the older players off this list, this is a very young list. I mean, you've got a lot of 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old players on this roster. I've been of this opinion. I think Sydney's a year early. This is how scary this is.
They're almost 2 years early last season, which is a crazy thing.
Well, I think last year they went into the finals with a lot of injuries, and GWS capitalized on it. I think getting to the finals,
fantastic game of footy, by the way.
Oh, it was a very good game of footy.
Super
Absolutely
close.
Fantastic.
If they actually kicked the goal in the last 5 minutes instead of just kicking 6 behinds in a row, we'd be different conversation.
Well,
but we don't need to rehash that.
That's finals for you. But that's what's really kind of scary about the Swans team, is that they have so many young players on this roster that are only going to get better as the years go on. So absolutely fantastic. I know, Swan Central. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We'll move next one. Cats give the Pies a taste of their own medicine with a late win in the dying stages of a game. And the Pies, man, they really did. I think they scared Geelong a little bit with how well they played in that game. This was the first time in so many of these wins this season by the Pies, they had the lead late in the game instead of being the team that needed to get the lead late in the game. So it was very interesting to see the difference on how Collingwood kind of approached it. The Cats.
Well, it's the first game all year where it was a 6-point margin or less that they actually lost. Their first loss in a close game like this comes in the finals. Oh, that's unfortunate, man.
But I agree with what many of the pundits said. Collingwood did not disgrace themselves in that loss. I mean, you got beat by a super experienced team that plays good footy, that just they hit just the right things at just the right time. And when Gary Rowan, a guy that had been mired in horrible performances in finals for so long, absolutely goes bonkers in this one. You just got to tip your cap as a Pies fan and go, you know what? They got the best of us. And it's not like the Pies are out. They get to play this week in the semifinals. They get a chance to get their mojo back.
Frio team in Collingwood. I'm sure they're. I'm feeling a lot better about Collingwood after their game against Geelong than I have almost all season.
Well, and it's a Frio team that's got to travel cross country from Perth to Victoria. Mm-hmm. And it's at the MCG where the Pies play really, really well. So again, Cats win it. It's the experience. It's the overall talent. It's the veteran leadership of that team that I think was one of the reasons they got over. But the Pies did themselves no disservice. And I think if you're Fremantle and the Pies, this is a classic game because either team can win this one if their style. It'll be fascinating to see how that goes. And then we've discussed it. Dockers come from 41 points back. They were down 42-1 in the first half to end the Doggies season in the West. And again, this is a Dockers team that at times can't score. They can play great defense, but they can't score. So it's very interesting to see them come back from 42 points back. They had a second game player, Jaya Miss, kick 2 goals in the game. Their manic pressure from their small forwards. They get goals from even Drago's aired out cousin, Rory Lobb. And so that was kind of a fascinating one. But man, just the Dockers, this is a team that I'm fascinated to see how do they handle coming east and playing in Victoria, because I'm a little bit more leaning the Dockers a little bit in this game against the Pies. We'll see. I still haven't 100% set my tips yet.
We'll give our predictions at the end, so we're going to have them concreted in by then.
I think that's going to be the game of I think that's going to be the game of this round. Like I cannot watch I legitimately may get up and watch this game because I think it would be worth it, because I think it's going to be an absolute classic. I think this is two evenly matched teams. And I think if the Dockers can get enough offensive ability, this is going to be an absolute cracker. Cannot wait.
No, it's going to be really good stuff. And I mean, we had, luckily enough, had one of the best rounds of the season was, of course, week 1 of the finals. And one of the crazy things is, even with there only being 4 games, the week 1 of the finals had almost broke. I forget which round had the most, but just those 4 games alone almost had the most lead changes out of any round the entire season.
Yeah, I think there were 16 just in the first game itself.
Exactly, man.
Forth. It was insane.
It was
that
so
Brisbane
good.
Richmond game was so back and forth. It was absolutely manic.
Oh, it was such a damn good game of footy, and we're gonna have don't worry, we're gonna touch on some of those a little bit more because we are about to jump into our overreactions. What better time to overreact about anything and everything than after week 1 of the finals? I mean, we're going to be talking Richmond, we're going to be talking Sydney, and we're going to be talking Geelong. 3 of the biggest clubs out there right now. But let's start with the Richmond stuff because as soon as this happened, Donnie, I'm sure you and I knew, and a lot of you guys out there listening probably knew, as soon as Tom Lynch kicked the ball over the post, we all knew, especially after they reviewed it, we all knew this was going to be talked about for probably until next season, especially by Richmond fans, especially by Damien Hardwick. And he didn't disappoint because he came out with a fantastic quote saying that Richmond, because of this score review, is going to lose millions of dollars. People are going to be, tons of people are going to lose their jobs, and all hell is going to break loose, essentially. So, Donnie, overreaction statement number 1, the review of Lynch's goal is going to cost Richmond millions of dollars and people their jobs.
Oh, this is almost comical answering this. There's actually, as I was telling Ross pre-mic, as I saw that this quote was up on 7AFL's Twitter page, and one of the reactions was just absolutely gold. And I'm paraphrasing it. This isn't exactly it, but it basically said, if this is the truth, that one goal review is going to cost you millions and jobs, you have to be one of the worst run clubs in the existence of time. And there were a few expletives through in there, so I'm not gonna utter them. This is such an overreaction that I understand the frustration. Okay, really do. Richmond fans, I 100% understand, but I'm in a minority here. I don't see the controversy. The camera angles that they showed, it was pretty hard for me to go, that went through for a goal, because it didn't. Because every picture that I saw, if you superimpose a goal up, the goalpost directly up, it is going to cover the ball, which means it would have hit the post in the first place. It was a behind. Did they get the right call in the end? Yes. Was it done correctly? Probably not. But the thing, though, is I even saw there was one person who reacted that said, literally in scientific proof, they said if 2 pictures show the ball in the exact same place, it is mathematically and scientifically impossible for it to be somewhere else.
So, well, if you guys want more proof, if you go on over to our Twitter account, I retweeted a picture. It had the ball in 3 separate angles, I believe, and they're all over the post. It was over the post. And I really got to wonder, though, because this was talked about a little bit. So obviously we saw Lynch's reaction. As soon as he kicked that ball, he reacted like he kicked it behind and totally screwed the team. If Lynch reacts like the ball went through and it was a goal, how better of a chance do you think they have of having that play being counted as a goal? Do you think it changes things at all?
Well, I know Tom Brown from AFL Media, I think he works with Channel 7, is a huge newsbreaker. He tends to break a lot of the stories. He tends to be one of the first to get news stories out there. Was quoted on Channel 7's reaction of saying that one of the preferences that the ARC looks at is player reaction, which, I mean, that threw Richo absolutely for a loop. Like, Richo was like, I've never heard that. Well, it's probably because nobody's ever talked about it, because it hasn't been something that's ever really been discussed. So do I think if he would have celebrated like it was a goal, would it have changed the outcome? Maybe. I don't know. Like it's hindsight's 2020. We know what was called. We know how it was called. Again, was it 100% correct by most people's standards? No. Like I said, personally, the angles that I saw, it looked pretty darn obvious to me. It was over the post. And that's what I think what happened with the arc judge. And again, I think some people, it's very easy for them to see haziness. So I don't know. But I just think Damian Hardwick, as great a football coach as you are, you're starting to get a resume as a great whiner. And I hate saying that because he's a great coach. And I don't mean to be rude, but dude, you whine about so much stuff. Just stop. Just stop. Coach football. Stop complaining, because you are not helping your club. You are only bringing it down by doing this. Like, all due respect, do what you're good at, and don't do what you're not good at. You're not good at complaining, because you complain
just
about
taken the L, man.
Yeah, just like I understand he's trying to make it sound like it's. There is no way that goal cost you millions of dollars. It didn't. Why?
No.
Because the AFL own the rights to all of the finals games, so you ain't making any money, and you're the 7th seeded team. You're not going to get a home game unless you play the 8th seeded team. So you aren't losing any money. You aren't gaining any money. So I don't see this argument. And if somebody's getting fired because of it, what the Sam Hill did they have to do with a bad kick? I just don't understand the argument. I really don't. I think this is, now if we were talking about European football, yes, a missed penalty call could cost a team millions of dollars and people their jobs. Why? Because of promotion, relegation, earth to Richmond, coach. You don't have it. So you have no leg to stand on, sir. Sit down, pardon my French, and shut up, because you look like and sound like a complete muppet. Shh.
Richmond's about to get relegated to the VFL, huh?
Oh, that'd be controversy there. Jeez.
Oh, wouldn't that be a fun time?
I love you. I love you as a coach, Dimma, but just stop. Just stop. The microphone is not your friend.
Another thing I think you'll have issue with is the next statement for our overreactions, because statement number 2 is that Swans fans and the team should be worried after Buddy's 0-0 game. And also, number stats is only 7 disposals and 0 goal involvements as well. Are we worried?
Nope. Not at all.
There we go.
Massive overreaction. Because if I'm supposed to be worried, I could also go, Isaac Heaney only had 10 disposals, 1 goal, and was pretty much quiet most of the game. Now, I think he might have got his nose broken after one of the spoils by Stephen May, but we're not going to go to that fact.
Hey, let's talk about Stephen May, though.
Chad Warner had a relatively quiet game, 15 disposals, only 3 or 4 goal involvements. It was not like he was his 25 disposals, a goal, and 8 score involvements. Honestly, there's a lot of Swans fans that go, well, that game literally there shows you the Swans could play better, because if Buddy plays better, if Heaney plays better, and you get the same Papley, Hayward, and your defense the way it did, honestly, I think it buoys a lot of Swans fans, because Stephen May had one of the best games you can have as a fullback. What I find fascinating is in the 2 games that they've played Melbourne, there has been a player on Melbourne's side that has probably one of their best games of their career. Gone in the first game, and now May here in this one. But you want to know the same thing. Swans get it because Swans in all had a better team game than Melbourne did in the long run. Again, I found it really interesting. I have a lot of D's friends, and I kind of became, and I mean this not in any way derogatory. I kind of became a therapist, because I was talking to these fans off the ledge a little bit, because I was like, calm down. I still think you're really good. I think you guys have a really good shot against Geelong. I think you'll beat Brisbane. Not a problem. I'd love to see you guys meet us in the grand final again. I think it'd be another epic game. I think it'd be fantastic. So it was funny. Like, I'm not one of those fans that goes, sucked in, haha, and I laugh at you because your team lost. That's never been my MO. I've never been that way. But it was very interesting. Swans fans, like I said, they were through the roof. Buddy doesn't play well. Heaney doesn't play well. Warner doesn't play well, and they still win.
Exactly.
Holy shnikes! Like they're going. Imagine if Buddy played well. Imagine if Heaney played well. Imagine if Warner got off the track.
I think we talked about that for maybe Heaney, but I'm not even close to being on the page that Buddy Franklin didn't play well. He didn't play great, but I think 90% of the credit should go to Stephen May.
He made impacts in that game that I think that they're not on the stat sheet. And this is my one pet peeve that I have that I'm really tired of hearing. Everybody's saying, well, the elbow, that was a soft free kick. Ladies and gentlemen, what can you break with an elbow? You can break concrete blocks with your elbow. So a guy elbowing you in the spine could potentially, cripple you. So
that's what I was thinking, like the beginning of that first quarter, seeing the stuff back and forth.
I just don't understand this argument. It's a soft free kick. It shouldn't happen in the first place. I agree with one of this. It's like Michael Jordan when you watch the doco series that they just did. If MJ was having a bad game, one of the worst things you can do is tell him he's having a bad game, because then what happens? And he goes absolutely manic, scores 35 points, and you lose the game. It's the same thing with Buddy with Stephen May. I'm like, why did you do that? Why? What did it gain? What did it gain? You know what it gained? It gained a free kick. It eventually led to another bump, which led to a 15-meter penalty, which led to a goal. And guess what? Yeah. The Swans were down 12 at the time that happened. What happened after that penalty? The Swans out-goaled you almost 3-1. So tell me, was it worth it? Was that a great decision? Honestly, and again, maybe this is the coach's hand in me. It's just dumb. You, potentially, Stephen May, could have cost the D's that win because you got Sydney back in the game. Great game, Stephen May, statistically. Decision-wise, maybe need to think of it a little bit more.
If he didn't make those decisions, probably would have been pretty much a perfect game. Is the fullback there?
And I think the D's win it by 3 or 4 goals. Honestly, like if that situation didn't happen, I think the D's win that by 3 or 4 goals because the Swans don't get any momentum because Papley starts yapping with them. They kick a goal, they get some momentum, and they start playing better after that. Legitimately, like you could literally say that after that situation happened, the Swans played better. The Swans were up in the game even more than they already were. So you could almost make the inference, and again, maybe I'm pulling at straws here, maybe. You could make the inference Stephen May was the reason that they lost the game because he opened up Pandora's box.
Obviously, we'll never fully know, but that is definitely that's a big possibility there. But
it's a different take.
Stephen May, and if anything, the Swans fans, like you were saying, the Swans fans should be thrilled that they played. They handled one of the best teams in footy, and they could still play a lot better. And why I want to talk about that was because it's kind of what I was saying. What I said on Twitter after the game, this is going to lead to our third statement here. What I said on Twitter after that Sydney game was that it was you replied and didn't say that you go that far, but it's okay because I'm willing to go that far, is that Sydney's performance really put the pressure, I believe, on Geelong for their game to really because there's a point where like we think Geelong is the finals favorites, at least going into week one. Now it's a lot more of a toss-up, but we all know for a fact they were the grand final favorites, all right? But Sydney was talking about that team. Like, there's a very good chance they make it to the grand final. Obviously this is a team that has what it takes to possibly win that. And so for Sydney to go out there, handle business against the D's, and then, and almost I thought they took the reins after that game, like, no, we have a new grand final favorite. And it's almost like Geelong, where they have to send their counter punch to Sydney and go like, no, we're still the best. And then they went into the game against Collingwood. I am not so sure anymore. So with that being said, Donnie, statement number 3 is that Geelong should be worried about their performance against Collingwood, especially given what Sydney did.
It's a very interesting premise, and I think the reason that I responded the way it is because I don't think Sydney's performance put pressure on Geelong to play better. I think Geelong knows that as long as they do what they do, they're going to get to the grand final. I mean, that's 100% there. Do I think you've got an argument here because of a lackluster performance against a Pies team that I think a lot of people expected the Cats to just absolutely wipe the floor with them? Unless the Pies kept it close, which the Pies kept it close. So there's a lot of people now going, well, are Geelong, were they a little bit of beneficials of flat track bully? They play a lot of weak teams going into the finals. That's why everybody was like, oh, this is Geelong's to win. I'm not going to say an overreaction on this because I think Geelong's biggest issue is that what Collingwood did to them caused them issues. Sydney's is almost 2 steps higher. So you can almost make an argument this isn't an overreaction because if Geelong gets to the granny and they play Sydney and Sydney comes with that pressure, how does Geelong handle it? Because Collingwood stayed in that game because of their pressure. There was very little room to move. Like that game between Geelong and Collingwood was nuts. Like you couldn't take a step without somebody hitting you. And
credit to Collingwood's defensive game too. Something we've seen this year.
Their defensive six has played really, really well most of this season. So it's hard not to argue they're a very good defensive team. I'm actually gonna say you're not in an overreaction because I think if I'm Geelong, I go into this is that you're looking at most likely, I mean, again, and this is presuming here, you're most likely looking at Melbourne in the preliminary final, and you're looking at Collingwood or Fremantle playing Sydney. And again, I'm not gonna throw my tip out there too much because I'm again still kind of bouncing back and forth on it. Honestly, if you're Geelong, you're a little more worried because your route's a little more difficult now. Because you're getting a Brisbane team that can put up a ton of points. Yes, defensively they may have their issues, but they can put up a ton of points. And Melbourne is really good defensively, may have some issues offensively, but they shut teams down defensively to where they can get enough, they can get wins. Sydney, you look at their side of the bracket and you go, well, there's 2 teams they've beaten already. And it's going to be at the SCG. It's going to be a hostile crowd. So you almost look at it and go, if you're Geelong, you're a little worried. You're a little worried because if you get to the final and you see Sydney, what you dealt with against Collingwood is amped up 2 steps more. Can they handle it? And that's the most interesting thing that it's got to happen because you're going off paper here. You just never know. Yeah. I mean, we could have the crazy thing of Fremantle knock off Collingwood, Fremantle go to SCG, and we could have a Fremantle Melbourne grand final. You just never know. We could even see a Brisbane Fremantle grand final.
That's the way veins, Donnie.
Oh boy, there is again. It's the way this season has been. You just can't sit here and say because there's going to be a twist. There's going to be some kind of oddball twist. If Brisbane beats Melbourne tomorrow morning, it will not surprise me. Like it will not shock me a bit. I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe." No, I'm going to go. Well, Brisbane had its day. They finally got over the hoodoo. So
I'm not expecting. Brisbane
I didn't say I expected. I said I could see it happen.
Exactly. We could see it happen. So it is what it is. But one thing I will say, I believe this right now. And in fact, I put them. They're pretty close to being my favorites to win the grand final. But Geelong edged them out a little bit more. But Donnie, I think they are. But is Sydney now the favorites to win the grand final?
You ask some pundits, yes. If they can put that pressure that they did against Melbourne in every game going through the finals, it is hard not to see Sydney getting there because their defense has been so stout. Offensively, they score goals, they move the ball well. They had a great performance by Tom Hickey in the ruck against what many people say is the best duo in the entire competition in Jackson and Gawn. He held his own basically by himself. Sam Reed came in and did a little bit, but he didn't do nearly as much as what Tom Hickey did. And so I almost look at it and I go, it is hard not to argue. And again, maybe it's reactionary because they beat the team that everybody said. Most people were tipping Melbourne. Most people were. Like if you look at pundits tipping of people in Australia, 95% of them tipped Melbourne to win that game. So this Swans win is out of nowhere. You and I, not so much.
Hey, it wasn't us, though. Let's not talk about the Richmond game.
Yeah, the only one I missed was the Richmond game, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. I was
Right.
scared. I was
Of
scared
course we
for my
missed that
Fremantle
one.
tip in the first quarter. I was scared for my Fremantle tip with Dockers at 42-1, but
yeah.
so yeah, it's you can make an argument, but you can also say that it is, as long as Geelong and Melbourne are still there, there's three teams that can win a flag. Collingwood, Fremantle, I think there's a lot of disrespect to them. I think they've got the right mix. They can do it. The question is that them having to play Sydney at the SCG, that's a tough task, especially having to play each other. So, and if somehow Fremantle win it, it's like you go Victoria, you got to fly back to Perth, and then you got to fly to Sydney, which is the longest trip in the entire AFL, Perth to Sydney. So,
well, there we go. Let's know your thoughts on this one, ladies and gentlemen. Is Sydney the new grand final favorites over Geelong, of course? And I guess pretty much over every team. I guess you can't say that Brisbane is the new favorites. Of course, they just knocked out the most dangerous team in the finals this year. So, we'll see. Let's sound off in the comments like I know you guys do. But we're going to move on before we get to What the Blank, talking about a couple of things from this round, as well as take a look ahead to the semifinals here. They're technically not the semifinals, but of course we're Americans, so we can't really say anything about that.
They're the semifinals in Australia, but they're the quarterfinals here in the state. They're called the quarterfinals. Exactly.
Semi.
But we can't really say anything. It's not our game, so we can't really. Let's not complain too much.
Oh no, we can't. We get crucified, so it is what it is. But oh boy, especially as a GWS fan, I am kind of liking the news, because one thing we're going to talk about before we get in a little bit of Essendon being have some issues with the Lions, apparently. Tim Taranto, of course, we knew his thoughts and how his wants and how he wants to go to Richmond, but Jacob Hopper is now jumping on the train with him. So both Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper are, I'll say, very likely on their way to Richmond right now. It's pretty much most of these times, one player in footy, when players request a trade, it pretty much happens. But, of course, not guaranteed. So we'll say very likely at this point. And Donnie and I were talking before we started recording here, and I'm actually a fan I'm kind of okay with this one. So, I mean, first off, I'm just going to give my 2 cents as a Giants supporter. We were talking, apparently the Giants need to cut around $1 million of cap space, and clearing out Hopper and Taranto is going to pretty much cover that. And given what the Giants are likely going to get in return for at least Taranto, we were talking. I was hoping for at least the 2 first-round picks from Richmond, but Donnie gave us even better news, is that they're thinking that's going to be the at least in this trade. So fantastic for me. I'm cool with that. Maybe throwing a backup ruckman, maybe a future first round if we really want to get going. But if the Giants could get 3 first-round picks and a player, maybe a little bit more for Tim Taranto, a guy that doesn't want to be with your club and isn't going to be with your club anyway, Donnie, I am a ginormous fan of this one. Especially, I know we end up having to trade away those players, but the Giants' first-round picks as a club historically have hit pretty well. They've hit pretty well.
And it'll be very interesting. Many of the stories that I see is Jacob Hopper has already basically said, I want to go to Richmond. So there will have to be some negotiations. And when you have 2 top-level midfielders, it's interesting. Do they try to combine this into one mega trade, or do they try to do it as 2 individual trades?
Do you think that makes a difference?
You could maybe get away with giving up 1 less pick if you combine the whole thing, just because the fact that you would probably see the overall kind of deal kind of change a little bit. The consensus that I'm hearing, again, and this is very early, and again, we won't see any of this until trade week, which is several weeks from now.
And what a week that's going to be. Oh.
Well, again, I think this is going to be the most insane trade period ever, because there could be a lot of moves
I'm excited for the trade period as much as I am for this round of the finals. It's stupid.
Richmond have at least they have 2 picks in the top 20. So those are pretty much, those have to be part of the deal. Like those have to be the starters. I've heard Ivan Saldo, the once oft used and now very rarely used Richmond backup ruckman, I think may have to be part of this deal, just to give some more size potentially in the forward line for GWS with their lack of tall timber forwards. And then potentially a second, and maybe a future first. I've heard just the future first. I've heard just the second, or I've heard the second and the future. Again, there's a lot of conjecture. It's what does GWS want? Do they want a ton for it, or are they going to accept a little bit less to get them off the books to potentially maybe be able to bring in maybe a smaller free agent just to kind of give you some depth? If you lose 2 players, you bring in 2 rookie draft picks. Well, unless you get lucky and you got 2 guys that are AFL ready, you may be drafting guys that are going to have to go through the VFL like a year before they really see the AFL the ground for an AFL game. So, like I said, there's a lot of conjecture on this. I still think there's a lot still to play off on this. There's going to be negotiations. Do I see both Hopper and Taranto getting there? If they throw, like I said, both first, Saldo, potentially at least 1 pick, if not 2, I think they could get it over the line. The question is, from there is that it sounds like Conchin's going to be re-signed. Is do we see Conchin potentially move back to open up more time for Hopper and Taranto in the midfield with Prestia next season? Or do they just try to kind of multi-head monster this and potentially just have more of a rotational, or maybe going forward? So it'll be fascinating to see. I think this gets done just by the communication I'm hearing.
It's going to happen. I'm confident.
I'm not going to say it's gonna. I think there's a very good shot. Again, you just never know. I mean, Geelong is still wanting Jacob Hopper, even though Hopper has said Richmond is his ultimate destination. The fascinating thing is, does Geelong have the assets to be able to trade for him, which I don't think they do. I think Richmond has more assets that GWS would probably deem more valuable, shall we say. So I think that's kind of how I see it. So this is one of those many storylines. Josh Dunkley potentially to Port Adelaide, I've heard. Junior Rioli sounds like he's pretty much inches away from signing a deal with Port Adelaide as well from the West Coast. There's still communications. Does Rory Lobb find his way to the Western Bulldogs? So I think there's going to be significant amount of moves this year. So it's going to be a very interesting trade period.
So I heard that apparently from his girlfriend that Dinkley might be on the move too.
Josh
Dunkley.
Yeah,
Dunkley,
Port Adelaide
Dunkley,
is really interested in trying to bring him in to kind of give a youth spark to their midfield, which I think may not be a bad idea because it gets him out of that star-studded midfield at Western Bulldogs, where he's getting time, but he's not getting the time I think he wants. And if he goes to Port, I think he steps right in, and he's one of those guys that he can give Butters and Rosie a little bit of a break from being that central midfield and let them kind of stay out wide where they can use their speed and pace. I think the Dunkley to Port Adelaide, is gaining steam, which is very fascinating to see. Jordan De Goey sounds like he's got a contract. He's got a contract in front of him, both from Collingwood and from Essendon. Darcy Parish, I've heard, potentially may even be on his way out of the Bombers if they bring in De Goey. So, like I said, there's a ton of rumors. Again, it's rumors. You just never know. But it could be a spicy trade period this year.
Hey, speak about something we know isn't going to happen, though. Ross Lyon, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that was probably a lot more clamored about last season. Apparently, one of my favorite quotes that I've seen recently is The vibe was not, or I think he said the vibe was not there when it came to his talks with the Essendon Footy Club.
Oh, I love Ross Lyon. I love him to death. He's an absolute, absolute legend.
I
love it. And the funny part is,
good for him though for not getting suckered into Essendon.
Well, again, I think it's kind of one of those, and I've heard a few different commentaries. I know Kane Corns had his little thing in his personal opinion.
Mention Kane Corn twice in one show, Donnie.
I know, right?
You're on thin ice, my friend. Thin ice.
I'm touching some nerves with some people. No, Ross Kane basically said in his opinion, if Ross isn't willing to go through the entire process, shall we say, which again I'm still trying to figure out what process they're talking about, because the CEO kind of threw gasoline into a fire and then expected it not to explode when he said he wanted a coach with experience. And now all the ones that you would call experienced coaches have disappeared. In fact, I don't know if you've heard this rumor, and I know we're talking about Ross Lyon. Leon Cameron has his name is starting to pop up.
Okay.
As a potential. In fact, he was quoted as saying he would be interested if Essendon would be interested in him as well. The thing though is Leon Cameron also has a contract sitting in front of him to be the head coach of the academy at the Sydney Swans. So does he want to stay in Sydney with his family, or does he want to take a head coaching job in Victoria? So that one's another one to look
now,
up.
You'll have to fill me out the information. Obviously, pay's going to be a part of this. Is it going to be like a drastic pay cut to be?
Pay would probably be better to be the head coach of Essendon, but it'd be much more.
Well, I'm assuming it'd be better, but how much worse would it be?
That I'd have to look into. I think it all depends on the hour structure. Again, stress level. I would say the head coaching is going to be much more stressful. The hours are probably going to be much higher with the head coaching job at Essendon. But again, I know he's got family in Sydney, and I think his son is still in year 12. So in New South Wales. So potentially he may kick it back and take the Swans job just to be closer to home and not
that's
have
not
to travel
bad gig
as much.
Though. Do that for a year or two.
But again, I've heard he's interested, so I think it would be a very good idea for Essendon to seriously explore Leon Cameron. I think it would be a great hire, honestly. So back to the Ross
especially
Lyon.
with your mentioned parameters of must have experience, which is stupid to say.
And they tried to walk it back, and it was an okay attempt.
Oh, Essendon tried to walk back statements, Donnie. Tell me, I have not heard that one before. Gosh,
I know, no, but we'll go back to Ross Lyon. Is that the quote? The not feeling the vibe actually was quoted twice. He did a podcast. He did a podcast. For Triple M called the Midweek Rub, which they kind of go through the previous round's games, and they straight up asked him. They're like, "Are you interested?" And it was the first time he was quoted as saying that he thought about it. And he called Essendon, and he's like, "Yeah, it's just not going to work for me." He goes, "The vibe is just not there. I don't think it's going to work." And again, is Kane Corns jumping to conclusions that Ross Lyon didn't want to go through an interview process, that he just wanted to be given the job? I don't know. I'm not going to ask, because I don't think Ross Lyon should have to answer that. Ross Lyon has taken 3 different teams to a grand final before. He has years of experience. He's one of those coaches. I think you make that exception and you just hire him. Alistair Clarkson, Leon Cameron are also 2 other guys that are out there that you could just, hey, here's the job, basically, type people. So I disagree with him a tiny bit on that one. Do I think Essendon is following their process that they talked about, which you got to give them a little bit of credit. They're actually trying to do something correct for once, unfortunately. I will give them that. Do I think that they really cost themselves a good coach in Ross Lyon? Potentially. I don't know. I just, again, I don't like saying that just because a coach has experience that they're going to be great, because you just don't know how they're going to gel with the club. So it's a fascinating one. I'm interested to see. I love what Ross Lyon is doing with Triple M. I think he's doing a fantastic job. Footy Classified, again, he's got that coach's mind frame. So I like hearing him in that aspect, because it's a different way of looking at the game. I mean, old superstars that have played the game but never coached, they have a certain way of looking at it. But a coach's look is such a different feel and communication level on how they kind of explain things. So for me, I love Ross Lyon on Triple M. I think he's a great tool to be able to hear how the game is kind of broken down and progressed through by a coach. So for me, I don't mind him not going to Essendon because I love what he's doing on Triple M.
Hey, shoot, fair enough. I'm totally fine with that explanation. And honestly, I'm almost thinking good for him because there's probably a better spot if he gives it a little bit more time that he might be able to end up at. I'm not sure if jumping into the fire and the kind of the total dumpster fire that is the Essendon club right now. His current media job probably seems a lot more cushy than what he would be jumping into.
Well, as we said, far less stressful.
Exactly, man. He's probably making good money. So honestly, we go from same thing with like the whole Buckley stuff. Like he has a pretty good gig right now. Doesn't have to worry about the crazy amount of stress that the head footy coach would have to go through. So good for them. They don't want the job. They don't want it, and it's up to Essendon to make that job more appealing. They're not doing a very good job at that right now. But let's know your thoughts on those couple topics, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think GWS is going to get in return for Tim Taranto and possibly even Jacob Hopper? Is this going to go through in the first place? And is Ross Lyon making the right choice, not feeling the vibes with Essendon? Who ultimately do you think Essendon brings in? That's definitely going to be a talking point we're going to focus on a lot over this offseason. Want to know your thoughts and your early predictions or guesses as to that. But before we get into our predictions for the two semifinal games, it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for What the Blank, the segment where we all collectively say, what the blank, man? Because that's all I was saying this round of finals, especially after every dang lead change that was Brisbane and Richmond. But for those that don't know how the segment works, I got 3 statements for Coach Johnny here, and there's a blank either at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the statement, and it's up to him to fill in with whatever he so chooses. And starting us off, and I think I can guess his answer, but I'm still not 100% sure because there's a few you can fill in here. But blank played better than expected this round.
Oh boy, there's a lot to go here, but I'm gonna curveball it a little bit, and only because I want to have fun with this a little bit. Is that there was one team that you and I had a lot of confidence in that most people didn't. So I'm going to answer this. Sydney played better than expected this round because if you ask most pundits, the D's were going to win this game. It was anomaly the first time they played because Stephen May didn't play. Doesn't matter if Buddy comes back. Melbourne's going to win. They're back. They're going to be back to their flag winning team that they did last year. And Sydney literally said, "Stuff that," and threw that crow right back in many of these people's faces. So you and I didn't, because you and I didn't look at it that way. I didn't fall for the game against Brisbane. As I said in the podcast, I said, I'm worried that this is a red herring. This is a game. They played a team that matched up really well with them. They made them look better than they probably were. And we were going to see when they played Sydney. If they played like that against Sydney, then they're back. If they didn't, maybe we jumped the gun. So,
and let's not even talk about just Sydney though, but also let's talk about Sam frickin' Reed, Donnie. Look at this man.
Well, if you want me to pick from there, I can say Sam Reed, and I can also say Tom Hickey. Tom Hickey played better than expected because Hickey did not play in that first matchup. The first matchup, it was Peter Laddams. Peter Laddams played in that game, and Laddams did okay. It wasn't great. Mm-hmm. Sam Reed came in and played really well because Laddams broke his thumb 8 minutes into that game. Reed played a pretty good game. And again, Reed has been one of those. He is a bane for many Sydney fans. I can't tell you how many boards I have seen that have wanted him sacked or released the last 3 seasons, because when he kicks it in front of goal, we go, which way is it going to go? Because it's definitely not going through the goal sticks. I mean, that's literally the way some people reacted. So when he kicks the first one to the goalpost, I'm like, oh no, I hope it's not one of those days for Sam Reed. and he kicks another one from like 30, and then he gets that one from 50 that he takes the incredible mark near the top of the 50 and then kicked it. Like, I kind of went, oh, this is a good sign, because when guys like Sam Reed, Tom Hickey, Jake Lloyd, some of the underestimated Swans players play really well, then it's scary, especially if they're winning when the stars aren't playing well. I mean, Luke Parker was his consistent thing. James Rowbottom, again, playing absolutely fantastic. I mean, I could say several through Sydney, but if I had to change it and say somebody outside of Sydney, I loved what Andrew Brayshaw did for the Fremantle Dockers. I think he played absolutely out of his skin. Again, he didn't win the league MVP, the Players Association League MVP, for no reason. The guy is legit very, very good. But he had to have a great game, because when they got behind and against a star-studded midfield that they have with Bontempelli, with Dunkley, with Treloar, with all those guys there, it's like to have the game that he had, that was a step up. That was a severe step up. Him and Sarong, absolutely fantastic. So there's too many to name. But if you force me to say, I would say Tom Hickey or Sam Reed, because those two, legit, you ask any Swans fans, they were not expecting the performance that they got from those two gentlemen.
Sam Reed was going to be my guest here. That guy, he came through when he really needed to. So I mean, I love seeing the fans' reaction to him. Loved seeing his reaction. It almost looked like he was even surprised that the ball went through. So a couple times. So like, good for him, man. That was so cool to see.
As long as he's marking the footy and tackling, I'm okay. Sam Reed doesn't have to kick goals, because I think there's enough weapons on this team. But when he's kicking goals, it's just an addition. That and Jake Lloyd kicks his only two goals for the season were both in this Melbourne game, and one of them
to
was
go along with his 25 disposals too.
Well, and one of them was that nice little cheeky slot from the pocket from 45 out, and that's a defender kicking that one. And then if I want to throw out another one, just because I know a family member of his, Dylan Stevens, being able to slot that one just inside 50 from the right pocket was another. And he has stepped in after halfway through the season and has become a consistent contributor for the Swans there, which again, the Swans, if you look at their roster, you go, man, they've got 20, 25 guys that can legitimately play well.
The coaching, the depth, the defensive pressure, and also Buddy Franklin having the ability to kick 5 goals anytime he steps on the field. It's all some very, very dangerous things that Sydney has going for them. Man, that's part of why I like them to win the grand final. So we'll see if they can continue to prove us right. But let's step up in statement number 2 is that the player that is going to come up big in excuse me, I totally just butchered.
I read that question and I was like, is he talking about the player that came up big last round, or is he talking about the player that's going to come up big in the semifinals?
Right. Here's a mistake. This sometimes happens. We get a mistake that happens, and I am too stupid enough to catch it before we go on. So what that means is that we're going to go to statement number 3, and then we'll be back with a new one that I am going to have to come up with.
He'll let me answer as he swiftly edits.
So, statement number 2, Tommy, is blank has the most pressure to perform in these semifinals.
I'm gonna kind of blanket statement this because I honestly think this is true, and that's the Melbourne forward line. The Melbourne forward line has a ton of pressure because you have Tommy McDonald sitting in the VFL that he's just not there. If somebody doesn't show up in this game against Brisbane, or somebody becomes a passenger, they're going to find themselves sitting in a preliminary final if Melbourne can get by Brisbane. So I think the most pressured team, the most pressured unit of this entire semifinals is the Melbourne forward line, because they have to step up, because Brisbane can score. Melbourne's defense is good, but if Brisbane can get off the chain and start scoring, Melbourne will have to start scoring. And Bailey Fritsch can score, yes. Keziah Pickett can score, yes. Browns can score, yes. But sometimes they have a little bit of trouble getting consistency when it comes to consistently feeding those forwards. So I think the forwards are under the most pressure going in to this semifinal round.
And statement number 3, the one that I totally had planned coming into the show. So don't worry about it, guys. Don't worry about it.
This is a great ad-lib. This is such a great ad-lib.
Super professional. I maybe we'll see if this one hits. I'm going to give myself a little bit more time thinking these. Screw it. It is what it is. We don't cut these. I'm too lazy to. And we're just roll with it because sometimes that's where Magic's main, but also sometimes that's where we crash and burn. But statement number 3, Donnie, is that besides the D's, the team that's playing in this in the semifinals that's the most dangerous when it comes to grand final chances is blank.
Many would say the Collingwood Magpies because of the fact that they have that pedigree of winning close games. So if they can keep it close and with their cavalier, exciting ball movement, attacking style of footy when they do, it's a brand that will show up. And it was a brand that will play in the finals. So I would say Collingwood because I think Collingwood they had that shot against Sydney earlier. They lost, but maybe they can take some learnings out of it. Maybe they can make a few adjustments. It won't be as easy the second time if they can get by Fremantle this round. So I would say Collingwood because I think they showed they can step up and play with Geelong. It was a close game. Geelong got the chocolates, but I think Collingwood did not lose anything there. I think they still can come in with a lot of confidence if they get to play Geelong again in the grand final. So I would say the Collingwood Magpies are the most dangerous team of the semifinals teams other than Melbourne that can get to a granny if they catch the preliminary final team the right way.
And now something I really just want to jump into, given that by the time this show is going to release just a mere hours before the Melbourne Demons take on the Brisbane Lions. So we might as well just I have a question about the Brisbane team, and I figure we'd just save that and roll on into our predictions for the semifinals. And it is one thing, this Brizzy team is really, really interesting, and their performance against Richmond put a big cog in law my thinking. Of course, we both thought that Richmond was going to win that game. We both thought that they were the dangerous, bottom 4 team, the most dangerous bottom 4 team. Obviously, things didn't work out, and like I've been saying to everyone that's kind of calling me out for my predictions, blame Tom Lynch. He screwed me. That's all on him. Should have just sold that goal, man. You saw that goal. We look right. We are right. You. Been nice, buddy. Of course, he's totally watching this and hears me calling him out. Yeah, totally.
Hey, come on the podcast, Tom. Come on the podcast. We'd love to talk to you.
Hey, you come on the podcast. I'll give you the proper score review. And it was a goal. It was a goal. All right. But one of the things I'm curious about, especially coming with this Melbourne game, this is going to be the 3rd time this year that Brisbane has taken on the D's. And the last 2 times they played Melbourne, they put up 57 points and then 53 points. Now, I might be wrong in the order of that, but in both those games, Melbourne scored over 100 points, and Brizzy didn't even break 60. And one of my takes, one thing I'll save myself on, is that I did say that Brisbane is going to have to score at least 100 points if they want to win this game, which is pretty much every game. So, I was kind of right in that aspect. They put up 100 points, over 100 points, and won the game. So, 50% right. That's essentially right. I don't know.
We'll give you half. We'll give you half.
I'll take half. I got 3.5 games right this round. So, more than Brad.
Brad was 2-2. He had the Western Bulldogs and he had Melbourne. So I was kind of fascinated. I almost gave him a little bit of stick. I'm like, dude, you tipped Melbourne over Sydney. Come on, man. Where's the Sydney?
Come on. I Sydney fan, but I can't really fan too.
But I can't really say anything. I've tipped against Sydney.
Hey,
but
most
of the
win
time,
for Brad, like your little win games. But I guess the point I was getting to about Brizzy is that they go up and they put on. They have a heck of a game offensively, defensively. They crap the bed once again. So, how are we feeling going into Melbourne? Are we expecting them to be a little bit more competitive? Heck, maybe even be able to keep up with Melbourne this time? Especially, with Petrarca having that hairline fracture where they're just going to send it with him because it's finals and that's what you do? Or are we kind of expecting more of the same?
Huge breaking news. Breaking news. Joe Danaher is out for the game versus
perfect
Melbourne.
Timing. Oh no!
I was just flipping through Instagram because you just never know, and it literally Channel 7 AFL has just posted on here breaking Joe Danaher for personal reasons is out for the game versus Melbourne. That is a massive loss there.
Personal reasons can mean a lot of things. So first off, hope that Danaher's everything's going to end up okay, because he's not going to be missing a semifinals game for any sort of small personal matter. Mm-hmm. So keep him in your thoughts. But even less so, I guess we have our answer. I'm not confident in this Brisbane team at all. I think this game was more of a one-off, and I don't think they can catch fire once. This is the first time all year that they actually performed well for a big game. I don't think they do that. They especially don't do that without Joe Danaher or Melbourne all the way.
Yeah, I'm even before that news there. I was Melbourne. Thinking, yeah. I thought Melbourne was just. Melbourne defensively, I think, just matches up so much better. Stephen May doesn't have to one-on-one any of their forwards because their forwards like to push up the ground, which then lets May and Lever sit in the hole and intercept Mark if they leave anything short or try to go into Jeremy Cameron or McStay or anything like that. So I just am one of those where I don't like the matchup. I think Brisbane just does not match up well against Melbourne. The Petrarca injury scares me a tiny bit because if he gets hit in just the right way and that hairline fracture gets bigger, or the Corky that they were saying was the original big issue, if that gets any worse and you're down a midfielder early against the Lockie Neal midfield, that could cause some issues. So I'm fascinated to see how that goes. I think the D's are just a little too strong. Defensively, I think they can shut down Brisbane. Yes, Brisbane got off the chain early in that first game against the MCG earlier in the season, but that second game at the Gabba, the D's just literally demolished them. It is not easy to beat a team 3 times in one season. It's just not. But this is just not a matchup I like. I just don't like Brisbane's matchup. No, Danaher now makes it even easier. So even before Danaher, I was pretty confident. I'm even more confident now. I think Melbourne wins this one, and I think this could be our first blowout of the finals. I think this could get ugly and ugly
more
quickly.
News of why Joe Danaher is missing is because his wife has gone to labor, or not wife, his partner. Excuse me. I guess I'm not 100% sure. His baby mama, at the least, is going to labor, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, that's a pretty worthy reason to miss a game of footy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is one of the ones that you completely understand. So, and if you have a problem with that says more about you than it does about anything else. So,
I think the birth of a child is a little bit more important than a football game. Just hot take. I know we like to drop hot takes here, Donnie. So we're just continuing the trend with that statement. So hopefully everything goes well with him, because that's awesome news for him. Obviously, you probably think the timing would want to be a little bit better, but
I don't think they get a lot of choices on that one.
Exactly. I don't think they're purposely having a kid on footy day, but no big deal there. Good for him, but we were kind of in agreement. We were thinking Melbourne was gonna win anyway. That leaves us with Collingwood in Fremantle.
I forgot. Before we move on, Brad sent me his tips. He's also got Melbourne as well.
Yep. And then moving to Collingwood Freo. It's weird. This game I'm a little bit torn on because I think Freo can play well. It's weird to think that Collingwood, coming off a loss, played arguably gave me a lot of confidence about their team more than I've seen a lot of this season, built to play Geelong in the way they did, especially defensively. And with Freo's almost inability to kick goals, even if they wanted to at times, I like Collingwood in this one, especially playing at the G. The way how Freo got off to such a horrible start against a team like the Doggies has me worried. I'm going with the Pies in this one. The Pies move on to play Sydney again.
See, I don't know why. Maybe, and I don't mean to disrespect Collingwood, but I'm interested to see how the psyche of Collingwood is after losing a close game, because I think they were right in the highs of so many close game wins that I think losing a close game, will it damage their confidence? Will it affect them a little bit? And I think the Taylor Adams injury, I think, will pose big in this one. I think he was a key cog in that midfield. They really struggled a little bit on the games that he was out towards the end of the season. So I'm going to go Fremantle. I'm going to go with a tiny bit of the upset in here. I know it's odd that you take the team that had to have this massive comeback and they had all their fan support, but I think they learned something. They learned the adversity that they got to get through. They learned, and they kind of used their skill set in a way that I think could be beneficial when they play Collingwood, because Collingwood is another team that, kind of like Melbourne, if you pressure their D-line, they make mistakes, which can then open up their scoring. And Fremantle, a lot like Sydney, if they put it on, can be absolutely insanely hard to get it out of your defensive 50. So I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go Fremantle in this one. I don't know what, I don't know why. This is the weird kind of gut tip for me. This isn't a statistical tip. This isn't a form tip. This is a gut tip. My gut tells me that this Collingwood team may have taken a hit confidence wise because of that close loss. Brad has also tipped Collingwood with you. I think same reasons. I think Collingwood at home, MCG, shouldn't be much of a competition.
It's probably going to be a pretty damn close game, though. I
really hope it is. I really hope it is. I want the Brisbane Melbourne game to be close too, because I hate blowouts in finals, because it really does dampen the finals a little bit. It makes you question whether a team really deserved to be there. So I'm hoping it's a close game. My worry is the Danaher injury, I think, throws this into a massive reel to where a blowout, I think, is definitely possible.
Unfortunately. We're hey, at least we're going to find out soon. We got 2 games going on this round, and plenty time to pay attention to them. So I am super excited. Let us know your thoughts. Drop your picks in the comments, or hit us up over on socials. You can find me at Fourth and Long Media on both Instagram and Twitter. And you can find Donnie at Coach Has 40 on both Instagram and Twitter as well. And just a quick plug for me before I cap things off is personally, I just want to say, if you guys are any bit of gridiron fans, especially when it pertains to the Denver Broncos, you can find me with Mile High Report now. One of the biggest blog sites, the biggest blog site for the Denver Broncos, part of SB Nation, and one of the biggest Broncos media sites, was weird enough to offer me a job and let me write and do podcasts for them. So, and I might even be taking over the social media accounts for them now. So, if you want to see Broncos news, anything gridiron, or just support me living out a dream, go ahead, find us at Mile High Report. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as soon as you're done listening, go on over and look up Mile High Report and listen to me. I just dropped my first podcast the day that this episode drops, as a matter of fact. So it's a good time. So please go do that. But especially enjoy finals footy, because Donnie, I just want to know, what are you looking forward to the most this round?
Oh, this round. I'm very interested. Like I said, the Collingwood Fremantle game. I think could be an absolute cracker. I think that's the game I'm the most looking forward to. Unfortunately, Brisbane Melbourne fans, I'm so worried that this game is going to get out of hand and get out of hand quickly. So my thought is that I think it's Collingwood and Fremantle. I think that is the game I'm looking forward to the most, because I just want to see, how does Fremantle handle the travel, and how does Collingwood handle the loss to Geelong? How do they back it up? Do they come out, snorting fire and getting after people, or do we see a little bit of a letdown from them?
If I had to predict anything, I think that one of the clutchest finals players of all time, also the same player that is the greatest American footy player of all time and the greatest Australian American footy player of all time, Mason Cox, kicks 2 in this game, double-digit disposals. He's going to probably have 5 goal involvements, and it's going to be a fantastic time. Better late than never to squeeze that in, but of course, I promise you guys one thing, in that I am going to plug Mason Cox at least one time per show. It's better late than never, but you guys all know how we operate here, is that we love Big Cox, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you so much for sticking in until the end. Of course, follow us, subscribe to us, all that fun stuff. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate you sticking on, especially in this fantastic final season. But to cap things off, Coach, your thoughts in one word or phrase on Lions.
Oh, so many lines to go off of. Are we talking the animal? Are we talking the coach? Are we talking?
I don't know. What am I talking about? It's a great question.
I'll answer it with a little bit of all of the above. Lions professional team. I'm interested to see how they handle the adversity now that is unfortunately in their laps as we speak. Coach Lions, keep doing what you're doing, Coach. I think you're doing a fantastic job. So that's how I'm going to answer those two questions.
There we go. That's Lions. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Hopefully you don't catch anyone around you, Lion. And we'll see you after the semifinals for 2022. Have a good one, you guys.